This morning on Carolina This Week, I'm honored to have Senator Lindsey Graham as my guest for the half hour. Carolina This Week starts right now.
This is Carolina This Week. Carolina This Week with Tim McGinnis.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina is going to be with me this morning. As you may know, he recently said he is considering a run for president. Senator Graham, thanks for being here this morning. It's been 5 years since I've had you on Carolina This Week.
I think I'm overdue.
Yeah,
I appreciate it very, very much.
And I want to start off by getting a couple house cleaning things out of the way. First, we're taping this actually a week before this is airing, right. So if anything, a lot may change in a week, and if it does...
Yeah, we didn't know about it.
Exactly. And also, it sounds like you're battling a bit of a cold here.
A bit, and hopefully by the time you hear this, I'll be better. If you live long enough, you'll get over this.
Exactly. This too shall soon pass.
This too shall pass.
First, let's talk about the presidency.
Okay.
I think some people may have been surprised when you said you were going to throw your hat in the ring, and other people thought maybe it was a long time coming. What do you think? What led you to consider running for president?
Well, the world's falling apart. For the last 3 years, I've tried the best I could to work with President Obama when it made sense, but his foreign policy is in a free-for-all. I've never seen more radical Islamic groups with more capability, with more safe haven to attack the homeland than I see today. This obsession with doing a nuclear deal with Iran could really send the whole Mideast into a nuclear arms race. So I want to be a voice on our side of the aisle, talking about how did we get here and how do we get out of it. I'm worried about getting attacked here at home. President Obama's turned down very sound military advice in Iraq and Syria, and what you see on the ground with ISIL is a result of poor policy choices by the president. We're reducing our military spending in Congress to all-time lows by the end of this decade, which is insane. So be a voice for national security and problem solving.
Let's talk about Benjamin Netanyahu being invited to address Congress. A lot of critics saying, well, it's a bad move because it's going to send the wrong message to Iran, and we're finally getting somewhere in diplomacy with Iran. What do you think? What's your feeling?
Well, if this is getting somewhere with Iran, I hate to see failure. As we negotiate with the Iranians over their nuclear program, and they want a nuclear weapon. They haven't been trying to build a nuclear power plant. You know, they've been cheating for 30 years. As I speak, Iran is influencing 4 Arab capitals. Yemen, our government partner in Yemen, has been replaced by the Houthis. The Houthis are supported by the Iranians. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula that attacked Paris is based in Yemen. So Iran is destabilizing Syria. Assad's a puppet of the Iranians. You got Iraq, where the Shia militias supported by the Iranians are wreaking havoc in Iraq. You've got Yemen has now lost its government due to Iranian influence. And Lebanon, Hezbollah has upset Lebanon. So they're building a ICBM that could make it all the way to America. As they wreak havoc on the Mideast, we're chasing a nuclear arms deal that I think is North Korea in the making. As to the BB coming here, I want to hear from the Prime Minister of Israel, our best ally in the region. And the reason I want to hear from him is because the enemies of Israel are our enemies.
This is such a strange situation in the Middle East. I don't think there's ever been something that isn't a strange situation in the Middle East. But now you have Iran, who really isn't friends with ISIL. You have all these enemies who are kind of strange bedfellows in this fight against ISIS.
Exactly right.
How do you pick your friends? How do you pick your enemies these days? I mean, it kind of seems to be changing by the minute.
Well, ISIL is a direct result of poor policy choices by President Obama. His entire national security team told him to get involved with helping the Free Syrian Army 3 years ago to provide a no-fly zone to keep Assad's air power away from destroying the Free Syrian Army. Syria was a result of people in Syria, like in the entire region, saying, I've had enough of dictators. And Obama missed an opportunity to replace Assad, who's now killed 200,000 people. But his biggest mistake was not listening to our generals and leaving a residual force behind in Iraq. Everybody said in 2009 that if we left 10,000 American soldiers behind, we could maintain the gains we'd fought so hard to achieve in Iraq. President Obama said, no, I'm going to keep my campaign promise, pulled everybody out, and now you see what's happened. Al-Qaeda in Iraq is the predecessor to ISIL. They were on their knees. The surge did work. They were sending messages to radical Islamists throughout the world. Don't send any more brothers to Iraq. We're beaten. But this void created by removing the American ground forces in Iraq, not helping the Free Syrian Army 3 years ago when it mattered, has allowed ISIL to come about. And ISIL wants to do a couple things. Bend every Muslim to their will, kill every Christian and Jew they can find, convert or die, and attack our homeland. The head of ISIL, al-Baghdadi, was in an American military prison in Iraq for 4 years, where I did my reserve duty, Camp Bucca. And when we turned him over to the Iraqis right before we left, he told the colonel that was in charge of the camp, "I'll see you in New York. They're coming here if we don't stop them over there."
How do we fight them? Do we fight them in the air? Do we fight them on the ground? Do we fight them by funding our allies?
Good question. We fight them in a fashion to degrade and destroy. You will not destroy ISIL from the air. You're going to need an American ground component. Here's the good news. Most of the fighters will come from Iraq and the region. But this idea that you can destroy ISIL from the air is a fantasy. We need to help the Iraqi security forces rebuild. The Kurds in the north, they're not getting the weapons they need, but they're a good ally. They are our friend. The Anbar tribes, the Sunni tribes, who are mad at Baghdad, who are mad at the Shia government in Iraq, they've aligned with ISIL. They've had a taste of ISIL life and they don't like it, so we need to pull them off. But you're going to need American people on the ground to do forward air controlling, intelligence, logistics, helping with some aviation assets, helping the Iraqi army. Because if we don't help the Iraqi army and we lose to ISIL and we don't retake Mosul, a town of 1 million, then the worst thing you could do is take ISIL on and lose, because every radical Islamist in the world will be on steroids. Then you got to go to Syria. You can't fix Iraq without Syria. There is no ground game in Syria. The Arabs in the region are not going into Syria with us to fight ISIL unless we help them replace Assad, who's a puppet of Iran. The Sunni Arabs are really threatened by the Shia Persians in Iran, and President Obama is so worried about not offending the Iranians, because he wants to do a nuclear deal, that he's allowing ISIL to thrive.
What do you say to the voices, many of them in your own party,
Yeah.
who say, stay out, just let the Muslim world figure this out and let them have their civil wars and let them do it. Why do we need to be involved?
Okay, one, this is not a civil war. This is a religious war. Radical Islamists are running wild throughout the Mideast. What do they want? They want to bend every Muslim to their will, purify their religion, destroy the state of Israel, and come after us. On September the 10th, 2001, we didn't have one soldier in Afghanistan, we didn't have an embassy, and not one penny of foreign aid went into Afghanistan. We left them alone. How did that work out? Radical Islam is not going to stop until somebody makes it stop. You could close Gitmo tomorrow and that wouldn't matter. You could give the Palestinians everything they want and it wouldn't matter. They want a master religion for the world like Hitler wanted a master race. To those in my party who think you can defend America by bringing everybody here and not leaving anybody over there, that's nuts. Because I promise you, they're coming here if we don't stop them over there. The good news for us is most people in the region don't want to buy what these guys are selling. Most fathers don't want to give their daughters over to ISIL. There are plenty of people in the region that want to fight back. They need our help. To President Obama, ISIL is not a regional problem. It is a threat to our national security. Over 4,000 foreign fighters have gone to Syria and Iraq holding Western passports, and they intend to come here. So my goal is to go after them now, disrupt them before they get stronger, coalition build, have people on the ground over there do the fighting with our help. But if you think you can defend America by withdrawing from the Mideast, you're wrong. If you think these people don't want to come here, you're not listening to what they're saying.
Should the president receive the authorization he's seeking from Congress?
The president's authorization is fatally flawed. The president has put limitation on ground troops inconsistent with what the military is telling him he should do. A president of the United States should listen to good military advice and not worry about polls. I supported leaving troops behind in Iraq, even though people were tired over here of being involved in the Mideast, because I knew if we didn't have the force left behind, things would fall apart. I supported engaging Assad at a time it would matter because I knew where this was headed. The Iranian nuclear program is the biggest game changer of all. If the Iranians develop a nuclear weapon like the North Koreans, then every Sunni Arab state in the region will want a nuclear weapon to counter the Shia Persians. Not one Arab nation felt a need to get a nuclear weapon because Israel is believed to have one, but all of them have told me to my face, if you allow the Iranians a nuclear capability, we will want one. So here's what I would tell members of Congress. Don't vote for an authorization to use military force that's a political document. Listen to the generals. Under this authorization, here's what's the problem. To go in on the ground on Syria, you're going to need a force in the region. We're training the Free Syrian Army, young men from Syria who want to destroy ISIL and Assad. They want to take back their country. Most Syrians are not radical Islamists. As we train them to go in to fight ISIL, a threat to our homeland, Assad is going to attack them because one day they will turn on him. I ask a simple question. If the people we train to go in and fight ISIL on the ground in Syria are attacked through the air by Assad, barrel bombed, what do? Can we stop the attack? And they said no. That's immoral. To train young men from Syria to go in to fight on our behalf and not protect them from the brutal dictator Assad is militarily unsound and immoral. Here's what I would do as far as an authorization. I would be really simple. Mr. President, use all necessary military means to destroy ISIL, a threat to our homeland, regardless of geography, and keep it very simple.
Last question on foreign policy, because I have a feeling we could probably talk about this for another hour or two.
Yeah.
Benghazi.
Yeah.
Is it time? Obviously, the Democrats would say it's time to let it go.
Right.
And Republicans say we need to get to the bottom of what happened.
Yeah.
Is it possible?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's important that we tell the families of the four fallen what happened. Susan Rice, the UN ambassador, President Obama's United Nations ambassador, appeared 5 days after the attack on 5 Sunday television shows and told what I think was a complete lie. The compound was not strongly and significantly secured, as she said. There was never a demonstration outside the consulate caused by a video made by a guy here in America. It was a pre-planned terrorist attack. All the intelligence coming into Washington from Libya suggested a terrorist attack. About a month before the attack, the ambassador wrote an email back to Secretary Clinton's office begging for additional security. Before the attack, how could we let it be the death trap it became? Why did every security request be denied? During the attack, for 9.5 hours, how could we not help these poor people? And after the attack, why did they blame this on a video and a protest that never existed? If this had been President Bush saying these things, or his team, they would be out to impeach him. Trey Gowdy is doing a very good, thorough job getting to the truth of what happened in Benghazi. One final thought about Benghazi. The President Obama oversells his foreign policy achievements and undersells the threat. This was just weeks before the 2012 election. Bin Laden had been killed. Well done, Mr. President. He told us Al-Qaeda was decimated, they're on the run, we're safer. Libya was an example of how that was untrue. They wanted to cover up the Al-Qaeda presence in Libya because it undercut the story they were telling us. Weeks before an election, the fact of the matter was that Al-Qaeda was very much alive and well, and the administration tried to blame it on something that never occurred. And in a democracy, you can praise the president, and you should, for the good things like the Bin Laden raid, but you have to hold him accountable for the bad things like Benghazi. And this administration has been getting away with what I think is a distortion of the facts for political reasons, and we're not going to stop till we get to the bottom.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to move to some domestic issues. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Senator Lindsey Graham. Welcome back to Carolina This Week. Senator Lindsey Graham's here to talk with us. We just covered foreign policy, so if you recorded this...
I still got a cold.
You still have a cold? It's still a week before this aired.
Yeah, still a week before it aired.
You take a lot of criticism from people in your own party, particularly maybe the more conservative
ideological
party.
Yeah.
What? Immigration. Why?
Okay, let's talk about immigration. We're in Horry County. A lot of service industries here. You know, America is a declining population. When I was born in 1955, there were 16 workers for every Social Security retiree. Today, there's 3. In 20 years, there will be 2 workers for every retiree. We're all living longer. When the 80 million baby boomers retire, people like myself, when we go into Social Security and Medicare, we're going to want our money. Well, who's going to replace the workforce called the baby boomers without immigration? I want an immigration system that's lawful, that's merit-based, that's economic-centered. The reason I keep talking about fixing immigration is a national security problem, it is a cultural problem, it's an economic problem. We're going to need workers in the future. We got 11 million people here illegally. Some can stay and some have to go. Start with securing that border, because if you don't get that right, nothing else works. 40% of the people here illegally overstayed their visas, like the 9/11 hijackers. Fix that. Make sure that employers who hire illegal immigrants lose their business if they cheat. Give them more legal immigrants to choose from. As to the 11 million, you can stay on our terms if you're not a felon, if you're not a crook, if you've done nothing but violate the immigration laws and otherwise been a decent person. You can stay, but you have to learn the English language as a condition of staying. You have to pay a fine. You have to get in the back of the line. You can't apply for citizenship for over a decade because you don't want to give these people an advantage over those who've been trying to do it lawfully. I want to fix immigration. We need workers. We need a better, more secure border, and we need to be practical with 11 million. The 11 million are not going to self-deport. They're all over this country. Some are bad, some are good. Let's keep the good ones and tell the bad ones to leave.
But wouldn't you have to create an incredible bureaucracy to kind of police that kind of policy, whereas a zero-tolerance policy, we wouldn't have to throw more money at the problem?
Zero tolerance has got you 11 million. The problem is that they're all here to work, most all of them. We've got a border with Canada. I've never met one illegal Canadian. They come to Myrtle Beach. Thank God they do. And we love to have our Canadian friends come down in March because nobody else wants to come because it's too cold. But they go back to Canada. The people here illegally come from poor countries, from corrupt countries. They're trying to find a better way of life. But we can't let everybody who wants to find a better way of life come to America. Secure that border. Pick and choose who you want to come here. So my view of immigration going forward, it needs to be about our economy. We're going to need computer engineers. We're going to need high-tech people. We're also going to need people to harvest the crops and do work where it's hard to find here. There's just not enough Americans being born in the future to deal with our economy. The baby boomers, somebody's going to have to take care of us. So I know what's wrong with immigration. The borders are broken, our current system doesn't work, and I want to replace it with something that will work, and I want to be practical. I can't tell the people of South Carolina that we're going to self-deport 11 million because we're not. But I can tell you this, if you follow my plan, we won't have 11 million 20 years from now. You'll have a system that can detect an illegal immigrant from somebody that should be here by changing the way the system works. I took a lot of I've had a lot of criticism, but I won big. I won this county big. And I want the Republican Party to know that a conservative like myself, social and fiscal conservative, that you can talk about hard issues like immigration. You don't have to be afraid to put solutions to hard problems on the table. The Republican Party has a chance to win in 2016. President Obama's been a disaster. Obamacare is ruining our economy. The world is falling apart. We're back in the game as Republicans, but we got to prove to people we can govern, that we can solve a problem like immigration, and realize that Democrats do exist. The one thing I've been pretty good at is working with Democrats and Republicans to solve the big things like immigration, to fix hard problems. God knows it's long overdue.
I want to take one more break. When we come back, the big problem that's facing a lot of people who are watching this show, who live in this area, jobs.
Absolutely.
How do we create them?
Absolutely.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with Senator Lindsey Graham. Welcome back to Carolina This Week. Quickly, we have to talk about jobs because we're running out of time here, but I think jobs is an important thing.
Sure.
We're one of the poorest parts of one of the poorest states in the country right here, running through the PD. People need jobs. People are asking for higher paying jobs, or just jobs, period. How do we make them happen here?
Well, the government's not going to create a higher paying job. The government can create an opportunity for somebody to start a job and pay their workers more. So you can raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour and destroy the economy in the process. The minimum wage is not designed to raise a family of four. It's designed to give somebody a chance to get into the workforce. We have good technical schools in RE County. Giving your high school graduates skills beyond high school is absolutely necessary. Building I-73, which I'm completely committed to, will help us in case there's a hurricane, but it will create infrastructure for these poor rural counties that are predominantly African American between Florence and Myrtle Beach, have a chance to locate businesses because they'll be next to an interstate highway. At the end of the day, we got $3 trillion of corporate American earnings parked overseas that won't come back to America at a 35% tax rate. Here's what I'm proposing. They pay taxes in the country where they made the money. They're an American-owned company doing business overseas. The profits are not coming back if we tax it at 35%. We're the only nation that taxes those profits twice. A one-time good deal for an 8 or 10% tax rate. Bring that money held overseas back into America, put the money in the Highway Trust Fund, build I-73, repair our roads and bridges. When it comes to energy independence, stop talking about it, build the pipeline from Canada, find oil and gas off the coast of South Carolina, Virginia, and North Carolina in an environmentally sound way, build more nuclear power plants, try to become more energy independent. That way you won't depend on Putin in the Mideast for your fossil fuels. You can find them here at home and develop an energy economy that's not so dependent on fossil fuels. The best way to create a job is to make the cost of creating a job less, not more. The EPA regulation of President Obama is a disaster. Obamacare is driving employers out of the healthcare business. The tax rates in this country are non-competitive. The regulatory system in America has gotten to be so large it's killing job creation. This is a service economy right now in Myrtle Beach, Grand Strand area. We build a new airport. My goal is to build new roads, new access to the Grand Strand to bring in manufacturing and non-service related industry jobs by building up the capacity of this area educationally to service the employers of the world.
By getting that corporate money back here, Democrats and Republicans agree on this. Why won't why can't that tax get lowered?
Because the left wants the money to come in. They don't want to lower the tax rates. They feel like you should punish these corporations. I think that's insane, really, quite frankly. You need a leader in Washington. You know, the baby boomers going to retire, 80 million of us. Social Security, Medicare is going broke. Younger people are going to have to work a little bit longer. People at my income level are going to have to pay a little more in and take a little less out, or we're going to become Greece. By 2042, all the money collected in taxes are going to go to pay for Medicare and Social Security to support the baby boomers. There'll be no money to run the military or do other things in Washington. You're going to need a leader to straighten out this mess, a leader to create a tax code that's more employer friendly, a leader that can get Republicans and Democrats doing things that make sense, like bringing money back into the country that's never coming at 35% and putting it into building roads and bridges that are falling apart.
Senator, thank you so much for stopping by this morning.
Thank you. God bless.
All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Three, two, one. Coming up on Carolina This Week, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. That's at 11 a.m. on Carolina This Week. Okay, one more. 3, 2, 1. That's all for Carolina This Week. We'll see you back here next Sunday morning at 11. That's it.